Every morning, when your eyes first open, the world waits for you with its noise, its chaos, its demands. Notifications buzz, emails pile up, news headlines shout at you before you've even had your first sip of water. For most people, this is the beginning of their day reaction, distraction, and exhaustion before anything meaningful has even happened. But here's the truth you rarely hear. Your morning is the most sacred part of your life. If you own your mornings, you own your life. And that's not just a motivational cliché. It's a principle rooted deeply in the timeless wisdom of the Stoics. They believed that each day was a gift, each sunrise a reminder of mortality, and each choice a chance to shape your character. What you tell yourself, what you practice, and how you set the tone in the first hours of the day has the power to decide whether you live with peace or chaos, strength or weakness, clarity or confusion. The Stoics were warriors, emperors, slaves, and philosophers who lived in some of the harshest conditions known to humanity. Yet they discovered something we are still chasing thousands of years later. How to master the mind before the world has a chance to master you. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, began his mornings reminding himself of the obstacles and irritations he would face. Selfish people, angry people, jealous people. He didn't do this to be negative. He did it to prepare his spirit. He wrote in his meditations, "The morning greeting to yourself should be, today you will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." But instead of resenting this truth, he welcomed it. Why? Because when you start the day expecting difficulty, you're not thrown off when it arrives. That's Stoic resilience in action. Now imagine the contrast between a modern morning and a Stoic morning. A modern morning, you wake up, grab your phone, scroll through TikTok. Compare your life to people you've never met and already feel like you're falling behind. A Stoic morning, you wake up, breathe deeply, stand tall, and speak truths to yourself that anchor you to reality, not illusion. You affirm discipline, you affirm strength, you affirm control over your own mind. And with that, you've already won before the world even knows you're awake. This is the power of what we're diving into today. 10 Stoic secrets that will change your mornings forever. Not surface-level hacks, not trendy routines that fade in a week, but real principles tested across centuries, forged in the fire of adversity, and designed to make you unshakable. The first secret begins with ownership, radical ownership of your choices. Epictetus, once a slave, became one of the most respected Stoic teachers in history. His reminder was blunt. You may not control all the things that happen to you, but you control how you respond to them. In the morning, this means refusing to surrender your first hour to chance. The first hour is not for your phone, not for gossip, not for the endless treadmill of comparison. It's for setting the tone. You don't need to check the world, you need to check yourself. So when you wake, remind yourself, I control my mind. Nothing external can take that away from me unless I hand it over. Whisper it. Write it. Breathe. Let it become the armor you wear before stepping into battle. Because let's be clear, every day is a battle. The world wants your attention. Companies want your focus. Algorithms want your emotions. But you are not a victim. You are a warrior of the mind, and your first victory begins with a single choice. Who owns your morning, you or the world? And here's the contrast that makes this hit harder. People who lose their mornings live in constant reaction. They scroll, they compare, they complain. By the time they try to focus, their willpower is already drained. Their mood has already been hijacked. Their purpose is already buried. On the other hand, people who own their mornings live with clarity and intention. They are harder to shake, slower to anger, more difficult to manipulate. They build inner fortresses so strong that the storms of the world cannot knock them down. The question is, which one do you want to be? This brings us to the second Stoic secret, the practice of negative visualization. Now, at first, this might sound depressing. Why would anyone want to begin their day imagining loss, struggle, or hardship? But the Stoics knew something powerful. When you rehearse difficulty in your mind, you strip it of its power to shock you. Seneca would remind himself every morning that wealth could vanish, friends could die, power could crumble. Instead of making him miserable, it made him grateful. Because when you know life is fragile, you savor it more. Think about this. If today were your last day, would you spend your morning arguing with strangers online or drowning in pointless worries? Or would you look your loved ones in the eye, take a deep breath of fresh air, and live with intention? This is what negative visualization gives you. It's not about living in fear of loss. It's about living with gratitude, because you've already accepted that loss is part of life. So tomorrow morning, when you wake, before you check your phone, practice this. Imagine losing what you take for granted. Imagine your job gone, your comfort stripped away, your loved ones no longer here. Let it sink in for a moment. And then open your eyes to the reality that you still have them. What happens next is extraordinary. You feel alive in a way most people never do. Gratitude isn't just a fluffy feeling. It's a warrior's shield. When you see your life as a gift, you protect it fiercely. And when problems come, you don't crumble, you stand. But here's the flow. Here's the transition. Gratitude without discipline is weak. And discipline without gratitude is cold. That's why the Stoics combined both. They didn't just wake up thankful, they woke up ready. Ready for resistance. Ready for challenge. Ready to prove themselves, not in words, but in actions. Which leads us to the third secret. Action before distraction. Modern mornings train us to consume before we create. But Stoic mornings train us to act before we're acted upon. This means when you wake, do something that affirms your strength. Move your body, journal your thoughts, breathe deeply, say your affirmations. Don't let the world pour its noise into your mind before you've spoken truth to yourself. So ask yourself this. Tomorrow, will you be a victim of distraction or a master of action? Will you let your phone dictate your thoughts, or will you dictate your own reality? The answer is decided in the first moments of the day. The Stoics knew it. And if you want to live with their power, you must know it too. Because once you own your mornings, nothing, not stress, not anger, not fear can own you. The fourth Stoic secret that will change your morning forever is remembering that your worth is not determined by what you achieve today, but by who you are becoming. In a world obsessed with instant results, likes, and validation, it's easy to wake up already feeling behind. You check your phone, see other people's highlight reels, and immediately measure yourself against them. Comparison becomes your first thought, and inadequacy your first emotion. The Stoics would laugh at this modern trap. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that the opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know what is good. In other words, your worth is not something given to you by others. It's something you affirm within yourself. When you start your morning telling yourself, I am enough, I am valuable, I am becoming stronger. You set your foundation on bedrock, not quicksand. Now, contrast this with what happens if you don't. If your first thought is comparison, if your first action is scrolling, if your first feeling is inadequacy, then everything that follows will be tinted with weakness. You'll overthink, you'll procrastinate, you'll avoid challenges because you already feel smaller than life itself. But if your first thought is worth, if your first action is affirmation, if your first feeling is groundedness, then even the storms of the day cannot break you. You will walk differently, speak differently, decide differently. This is the unseen strength of Stoic mornings. They don't just prepare you for the day. They shape how the world responds to you. The fifth secret is facing discomfort before the world forces it upon you. The Stoics practiced voluntary hardship, small acts of discipline that toughened their minds. Seneca would sleep on the floor even though he had wealth. Epictetus, once crippled by his master, taught that it's not the event itself, but how you interpret it that determines whether you suffer. In modern terms, this means doing hard things before the day throws harder ones at you. Cold showers, early rising, fasting, exercise, these are not trends. They are training. Training the mind to be comfortable with discomfort. Training the spirit to stay calm when others panic. Imagine this. You wake up and deliberately expose yourself to discomfort, a cold splash of water, a challenging workout, a refusal to immediately seek comfort. Already, you are signaling to your brain, I am in control, not my cravings. And here's the contrast. If you start with comfort, if you start with indulgence, then when discomfort inevitably comes later in the day, it will crush you. But if you train with discomfort in the morning, then when life gets hard, you'll be ready. The Stoics weren't tough by accident. They were tough by training. And you can be too, every morning, with small acts of discipline that prepare you for the bigger battles. But let's move to something just as important. The sixth secret, guarding your attention like a treasure. The Stoics understood that your mind is your most valuable possession. Aurelius warned himself not to. The fifth secret is facing discomfort before the world forces it upon you. The Stoics practiced voluntary hardship, small acts of discipline that toughened their minds. Seneca would sleep on the floor even though he had wealth. Epictetus, once crippled by his master, taught that it's not the event itself, but how you interpret it that determines whether you suffer. In modern terms, this means doing hard things before the day throws harder ones at you. Cold showers, early rising, fasting, exercise, these are not trends. They are training. Training the mind to be comfortable with discomfort. Training the spirit to stay calm when others panic. Imagine this. You wake up and deliberately expose yourself to discomfort, a cold splash of water, a challenging workout, a refusal to immediately seek comfort. Already, you are signaling to your brain, I am in control, not my cravings. And here's the contrast. If you start with comfort, if you start with indulgence, then when discomfort inevitably comes later in the day, it will crush you. But if you train with discomfort in the morning, then when life gets hard, you'll be ready. The Stoics weren't tough by accident. They were tough by training. And you can be too, every morning, with small acts of discipline that prepare you for the bigger battles. But let's move to something just as important. The sixth secret, guarding your attention like a treasure. The Stoics understood that your mind is your most valuable possession. Aurelius warned himself not to waste it on trivialities. Today, we have more distractions than the entire Roman Empire combined. Every morning, advertisers, algorithms, and notifications fight for your attention. If you give it away freely, you are poor no matter how much money you have. If you guard it carefully, you are rich no matter how little you own. So in the morning, decide this. Where will your attention go? Will it be wasted on gossip, on comparison, on noise? Or will it be invested in reflection, in action, in gratitude? Epictetus said, "If a man would only remember that God looks down upon all that he does, both in soul and body, he would never err in either his prayers or his actions." Translated for today, if you lived as though your attention was being observed, would you still waste it? If not, then treat your focus like the sacred currency it is. Now, here's the transition. Once your attention is guarded, you can move to the seventh Stoic, secret living with purpose. Purpose is not something you stumble upon. It is something you choose every single morning. Aurelius began each day by reminding himself that his purpose was not comfort but service to his family, to his empire, to humanity. And so he rose, not asking, "What do I feel like doing today?" but instead, "What is my duty?" Imagine starting your morning with that clarity, not aimlessly wandering, not chasing distractions, but moving with purpose as if your life mattered, because it does. And this brings us to a profound contrast. Without purpose, mornings are wasted. They dissolve into distraction and regret. But with purpose, even small actions gain meaning. Making your bed becomes an act of order. Drinking water becomes an act of health. Speaking kindly becomes an act of service. Purpose transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. So tomorrow morning, ask yourself not "What do I want?" but "What is my purpose today?" That single question can change the trajectory of your life. The eighth secret flows naturally from this: choosing your perspective before the world chooses it for you. Stoicism is built on the idea that it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. You can wake up to rain and complain, or you can wake up to rain and be grateful for life-giving water. The event is the same. The judgment is different. This means your mornings must include an intentional shaping of perspective. Before you step into the chaos, decide how you will see the world. Will you view challenges as enemies or as teachers? Will you see people as obstacles or as opportunities to practice patience? Here's the contrast again. People without perspective are victims of circumstance. Their mood changes with the weather. Their confidence changes with approval. Their peace changes with headlines. People with perspective are untouchable. They see obstacles as fuel, setbacks as training, insults as noise. Which one will you be? It depends on the perspective you choose in the first moments of your day. The ninth Stoic secret is practicing gratitude in action, not just thought. Many people talk about gratitude. Few live it. The Stoics didn't just think grateful thoughts, they embodied them. Gratitude for them was waking up and living as though life was a fragile, temporary gift. It was thanking the universe, not with words, but with actions of integrity, courage, and love. So, in the morning, don't just say you're grateful. Show it. Take care of your health because your body is a gift. Speak kindly because your relationships are a gift. Work diligently because time is a gift. Gratitude unexpressed is hollow. Gratitude in action is transformation. And finally, the 10th secret, remembering death. Memento mori, remember that you will die. To modern ears, this sounds morbid, but to the Stoics, it was liberation. To remember death is to remember life. To wake each morning and whisper, this could be my last day, is not despair, it is clarity. It kills procrastination. It kills trivial arguments. It kills wasted hours. It reminds you that you are alive now, and that is enough. Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Imagine starting your morning with that urgency. Would you waste it scrolling? Or would you live as if every breath mattered?" So here we are, 10 Stoic secrets that can change your morning forever. Ownership, visualization, action, worth, discomfort, attention, purpose, perspective, gratitude, mortality. 10 anchors, 10 shields, 10 weapons to carry into the battle of the day. If you begin each morning with even one of these, you'll be stronger than most. If you begin with all, you will be unstoppable. And yet, this is only the beginning. Because knowing the secrets is not the same as living them. Tomorrow morning, the choice will be yours. Reaction or intention, weakness or strength, distraction or focus. The Stoics made their choice centuries ago. What will yours be? Most people believe that transformation happens in dramatic moments, a big decision, a huge breakthrough, a sudden change. But the Stoics knew the truth. Transformation is forged in the small, invisible choices you make every single morning. It's not about a single lightning strike of motivation. It's about a steady fire that never goes out. And this is where the real power of Stoicism comes alive. Not just in knowing the 10 secrets, but in weaving them into your life so tightly that they become who you are. Because a secret is worthless if it remains on paper. A principle is powerless if it stays in your head. It must move into your blood, into your breath, into your habits. So let's go deeper. Let's explore how these Stoic practices can actually be lived, step by step, in a morning that belongs fully to you. Imagine this. You wake before the sun. The room is quiet, the world still asleep. You feel the heaviness of your body, the resistance to getting up, the whisper that says, "Just 5 more minutes. This is your first test." The Stoics would call it the battle between your higher self and your lower self. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this exact struggle. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I am rising to do the work of a human being. Why am I dissatisfied if I am going to do the very things for which I was born?" The emperor himself struggled with mornings, yet he reframed it not as a weakness, but as a reminder of purpose. That's the mindset shift you need to bring to your first moment of the day. Instead of caving to the comfort of more sleep, rise with the fire of intention. And here is where contrast framing makes it clear. If you obey the voice of laziness, the entire day is built on surrender. If you obey the voice of purpose, the entire day is built on victory. One decision, first thing in the morning, decides the tone of everything that follows. Most people never realize this. They think their mornings don't matter, that snoozing the alarm is harmless. But the Stoic knows, every choice trains the soul. Every action shapes the character. To waste your first decision is to practice weakness. To seize it is to practice strength. Now you're awake, standing. What comes next? The modern world says check your phone, but the Stoic says check your mind. Take a deep breath and bring awareness to yourself. Are you tense? Are you heavy with thoughts? Or are you clear? This moment of self-examination is not fancy. It's essential. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." To be master of yourself, you must know yourself. So instead of letting the world rush in with its noise, pause and listen to your own soul. Even 1 minute of silence can recalibrate your entire being. Here's a practice. Before you drink coffee, before you look at a screen, speak the first Stoic truth out loud in a ship. Tell yourself, I control my mind. I choose my response. I am not a victim. This might feel small, but it's a declaration of war against passivity. Because make no mistake, the world profits from your passivity. Companies want you reactive. Social media wants you hooked. News outlets want you outraged. But the Stoic morning is your rebellion. It's your refusal to be a slave to external forces. And from here, negative visualization naturally flows. Imagine your day stripped of its comforts. Imagine today is the day you lose what you love. Imagine failure, loss, and death. Why? Not to make you miserable, but to make you grateful. When Seneca told himself that wealth, status, and even life itself could vanish in an instant, he wasn't being dark, he was being wise. Because only by imagining loss do you realize the true value of what you have. Only by facing death do you truly live. So, as you sip your water in the stillness of the morning, whisper to yourself, I could lose all of this, but I haven't yet. Today I live. Today I am blessed. Gratitude floods your system, and already you are living differently than most. The flow continues. Gratitude without action is sentimentality. Action without gratitude is cold. Combine them, and you are unstoppable. That's why the Stoics demanded action, doing something deliberate before distraction steals your soul. This is why Aurelius would write, why Seneca would reflect, why Epictetus would teach. They acted. They didn't just think. So after your gratitude, do something. Move your body, write your thoughts, speak your affirmations. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it must be intentional. Because action is what transforms philosophy into life. But here comes another contrast. If you don't act in the morning, you will react all day. If you don't decide your direction, someone else will. If you don't choose to lead yourself, you'll be led by the lowest bidder advertisers, influencers, strangers. That's why action is sacred. It's not about productivity hacks or life optimization. It's about reclaiming your sovereignty. The moment you act deliberately, you are free. From here, you ground yourself in worth. You say, I am enough. And maybe you don't believe it at first. Maybe the voice of comparison is louder, the voice of inadequacy sharper, but repetition is training. The Stoics weren't free of doubt, but they fought it every day with truth. Aurelius reminded himself constantly of his values, his role, his place in the universe. You must do the same. Each morning, before the world tells you you're not enough, tell yourself you already are. Anchor your worth in who you are, not what you achieve. And then, as the sun rises higher, you lean into discomfort. Cold water, silence, exercise, fasting, these aren't punishments, they're liberation. Because once you choose discomfort, it loses its power to frighten you. Life will bring storms whether you like it or not. Better to train now in small discomforts so you are unshaken when the larger storms arrive. Remember, the same fire that melts butter hardens steel. The difference is in the material. Will you be butter or steel? Your mornings decide. And finally, as you step into the day, you return to perspective. Rain is not bad. Delays are not unfair. People are not enemies. Everything is fuel. Everything is a chance to practice virtue, patience, courage, wisdom, justice. And in that mindset, Even setbacks become blessings. That's the Stoic difference. They didn't wait for the world to be easy. They trained themselves to be strong. And you can too. So here's the truth. Your mornings are not small. They are the most decisive part of your life. They are where you practice ownership, gratitude, action, worth, discomfort, attention, purpose, perspective, gratitude, and mortality. They are where you become who you are meant to be. The Stoics knew it. Now you do too. The question is simple. Will you rise like everyone else, or will you rise like a Stoic? The morning is more than just the start of your day. Is the stage upon which your character is tested. The Stoics believed that your virtue is not measured in what you say, but in what you do. And there is no moment more revealing than the first hours after you wake. These hours belong either to distraction or to discipline. And this is why the Stoic secrets are not just tips, but profound anchors that hold you steady when the storms of life hit. So let's dive deeper, because now we're no longer just listing practices, we're building a system. A system that transforms mornings from chaos into clarity, from weakness into strength. Begin by remembering this. Every day is a gift you didn't earn. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Think about that." He was an emperor, commanding armies, ruling an empire. And still he reminded himself daily of something so simple, the privilege of waking up. Yet what do most of us do? We wake up complaining, dreading work, scrolling on phones, comparing ourselves to strangers. We act as if life owes us something. But the Stoic flips the script. Life owes us nothing. Everything is borrowed, fragile, temporary. When you live with that awareness, your morning becomes a sacred ritual, not a meaningless routine. Now picture yourself standing at your window. The light is faint, the air crisp. Most people don't notice it, but you pause. You remind yourself, this may be the last sunrise I see, harsh, maybe, but powerful. Absolutely. Because death awareness is the most electrifying alarm clock. You stop sleepwalking through your morning. Suddenly, your breath feels valuable, your time priceless. You don't waste it. And in that awareness, you find energy, not fear. The Stoics weren't obsessed with death, they were obsessed with living fully while they had the chance. That is the first secret of every great morning. Live as if it's your last, because one day it will be. From there, discipline becomes natural. Why? Because procrastination collapses under the weight of mortality. When you feel the truth that your hours are finite, scrolling on a screen feels like theft. Laziness feels like betrayal. The Stoic refuses to betray themselves. They choose discipline, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they know suffering builds freedom. Epictetus, born a slave, crippled and powerless, discovered this freedom in the discipline of his mind. He wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself. Self-mastery begins in the morning." Every time you choose to rise when you want to sleep, to work when you want to quit, to endure when you want to escape, you are practicing freedom. So when you wake tomorrow, remember this. You are standing at the doorway of destiny. Every choice in your morning sends ripples into eternity. Will you waste it in distraction? Or will you rise with the fire of the Stoics? The world is waiting to see. There is something almost sacred about the way a morning unfolds. The air carries a silence that the rest of the day will soon steal away. It is in that silence that the Stoic finds power. Because power is not in noise, not in chaos, not in rushing. It is in the calm conviction of someone who knows who they are and what they stand for. That's what the Stoic morning is really about. Identity. Who are you before the world tells you? Who are you before your phone buzzes with demands? Who are you before you put on the mask of work, relationships, and obligations? The Stoic answers, I am a human being endowed with reason. I am here to live with virtue. I am here to do the work of a human being. That is enough. Marcus Aurelius wrestled with this question every morning. He admitted he didn't want to leave the warmth of his bed, yet he reminded himself, you were born to work. Why are you dissatisfied if you are going to do the very thing for which you were born? This is the essence of Stoic mornings. They pull you back to purpose. They shake you out of illusion. Comfort tells you to stay asleep, but purpose tells you to rise. When you choose purpose, you are already living a different life than most. But let's get deeper. A Stoic morning isn't just about rituals. It's about rewiring your perception. The way you see the morning shapes the way you see the day. Most people see mornings as an obstacle, something to get through. Stoics saw them as an opportunity, something to conquer. The difference is massive. One creates a victim, the other creates a warrior. That's why Aurelius could face endless stress and still hold his ground. That's why Seneca, though surrounded by wealth, practiced poverty each morning by imagining the loss of everything. That's why Epictetus, with nothing but his mind, lived freer than emperors. They didn't waste mornings. They weaponized them. Weaponized how? Through framing. Contrast framing was one of their strongest tools. Instead of seeing waking up as leaving comfort, they saw it as entering purpose instead. Of seeing obstacles as interruptions, they saw them as training. Instead of seeing mornings as routine, they saw them as sacred beginnings. This framing is what allows ordinary actions to become extraordinary. Drinking water becomes gratitude. Breathing air becomes meditation. Stepping into cold becomes courage. Writing down a thought becomes philosophy. Everything is infused with meaning when viewed through the Stoic lens. But here's the warning. Meaning doesn't appear on its own, you create it. And every morning, you either create meaning or drift into emptiness. The world will try to sell you meaning through likes, followers, money, status. The Stoic rejects this. True meaning is internal. It's the quiet pride of knowing you rose when you didn't want to. It's the calm of knowing you began with gratitude instead of complaint. It's the strength of choosing discipline over ease. That meaning is untouchable because it doesn't depend on anyone else. And when you carry it, you carry a power that cannot be bought or stolen. Now think about momentum. The Stoics knew life is not decided in a single day, but in the momentum of days stacked on top of each other. A single morning well lived might feel small, but repeated over weeks, months, years, it forges destiny. Marcus Aurelius didn't become wise by accident. Seneca didn't write brilliance in a single sitting. Epictetus didn't develop resilience overnight. They built it, morning by morning. That's why mornings matter. Not because of one magical routine, but because of the compounding effect of repeated virtue. Imagine yourself 365 mornings from now. If you live them distracted, you will be scattered. If you live them stoic, you will be unbreakable. That's the power of momentum. And this is where self-reflection locks it in. Don't just go through your morning, review it. Ask, did I rise with purpose or with laziness? Did I choose gratitude or complaint? Did I act deliberately or react blindly? The Stoics practiced this kind of reflection relentlessly. Seneca wrote nightly letters to himself. Aurelius filled journals that still inspire us today. They weren't performing for the world. They were correcting themselves, sharpening themselves, improving themselves. Do the same. Even 5 minutes of review in the morning can change the trajectory of your day. Let's talk about presence. The Stoics were not lost in fantasies of the future or regrets of the past. They anchored themselves in now. Aurelius said, "Confine yourself to the present. Your morning is the perfect time to practice this. Don't just sip coffee, taste it. Don't just walk, feel the ground beneath your feet. Don't just breathe. Notice the air filling your lungs. Each act of presence is an act of rebellion against a world addicted to distraction. Presence is rare, which is why it feels so powerful. And mornings are the perfect place to reclaim it." Finally, let's return to the ultimate Stoic theme, virtue. Why do any of this? Why rise early, endure discomfort, reflect, visualize death, give thanks? Because virtue is the highest good. Because courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance make you unshakable. Because living with virtue transforms every morning into a victory. The Stoics weren't chasing happiness. They were embodying virtue. And from virtue, happiness naturally followed. That's why your morning matters, not just to be productive, but to become good. A good person, unshaken by storms, unbroken by loss, uncorrupted by pleasure. A good person who faces the day with clarity and strength. So tomorrow morning, when the alarm rings, you face a choice. Stay in bed, scroll, complain or rise, breathe, reflect, and own the day. One choice makes you weaker. The other makes you stronger. And the secret is, it's never about the alarm clock. It's about the soul. Which one will you train? Because in the end, a Stoic morning is not about time management, it's about life management. It's about deciding who you are before the world decides for you. And if you can win the morning, you can win the day. And if you win enough days, you can win a life.